When you're not feeling good, you're not staying positive, you're focused on the negative. Look for what's good. Harvest the good. There's good in everything. Don't take any joy out of finding out what's wrong with something. Any dumbbell can point out what's wrong. It takes a respectable amount of intelligence and focus to figure out what's right. Now think of that. When you feel good, you're staying positive. When you don't feel good, you're negative. Feeling is conscious awareness of the vibration we're in. When you're positive, you're in a good vibration. When you're negative, you're in a bad vibration. When you're positive, you attract all kinds of good things to you. So you see, you can actually become a magnet for good by staying positive. It's a choice. It's a choice you make.
Reframe things into the positive. You have a choice with every single thing that happens to you in your life. Every single bad thing that happens can be reframed into a positive. Yeah, but Bedros, that's not realistic. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so we start reframing every adversity is an advantage.
Because research has shown over and over and over again that positive thoughts have a massive impact on the structure of your brain. And when the structure of your brain changes, the function of your brain long-term will change as well. In fact, it's very similar to how physical exercise gradually changes the body if you do it over and over and over again. Positive brain workouts help form new neural pathways that can disrupt your negative thinking patterns, leading to long-lasting changes in your cognitive function, which help you think better and actually help your brain work better.
In every moment, in everything that happens, you can look on the bright side of something, right? And so I used to do that forcibly, and then I trained it until it became second nature. So for example, like a friend of my wife's was over, and when we were dating, and she took all these photos. She took like hundreds of photos, and then she sends them all to us. And my immediate reaction was like, why are you dumping hundreds of photos on my phone? I don't need hundreds of photos. Have some judgment. That was my immediate reaction. And then I could say, actually, how nice of her. She sent me hundreds of photos. I could pick the one that I like, right? There are two ways of seeing almost everything. There are a few things that are like high suffering, so you can't do that, other than just saying, well, this is a teacher, right? But I slowly worked through every negative judgment that I had until I saw the positive in it. Now it's second nature to me.
Be aware of your thoughts. You want to pay attention to what you think about, right? Just pay attention to the thoughts that go through your mind throughout the day. Are they positive or they're negative? Are they helpful or they're harmful? When you find yourself thinking something that's negative, instead of you dwelling on the negativity, what you want to do is you want to quickly replace that negative thought with something more positive.
As long as you think positively, don't judge, don't criticize, don't complain, don't do any of those things, but just be positive. Just keep all those things away. They don't serve any of us, and they just harm our own life. So, you just want to turn away from something that would have you complain, and just think positively.
We all have the power to become superheroes, and all we need to do is we need to tap in to the free superpower that we all have, which is positive thinking.
By the way, do you know what unsuccessful people think about most of the time? They think about what they don't want, the things that make them angry or sad, usually past events that they can't change, and they think about who's to blame for all their problems. So whenever you see people talking and complaining about things that they can't change, things in their life that are their responsibility, and then blaming others for their problems, you're dealing with a negative, unhappy person with a very limited future and a very unhappy present. So the way you take control of your mind, like grabbing the wheel of a vehicle, is start to think about what you want and how to get it all day long. And you automatically become positive and start to feel in complete control of your life.
Your brain is like a supercomputer, and your self-talk is a program it will run. So if you tell yourself you're not good at remembering names, you will not remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to. And I always tell people that your self-talk is important, and it is the program that we will run. And I always tell people to keep it positive, keep it empowering, because your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk, right? And you have to be careful what you say to yourself.
You can cultivate positive thinking by practicing gratitude. Gratitude causes the brain to release those good hormones, right? Dopamine and serotonin. And when your brain releases higher levels of dopamine and serotonin, you get to, enjoy the benefits of that, like reduced stress, it lowers your anxiety, and it just gives you that ability to attack the day with a more positive vibe.
95% of your emotions are determined by how you talk to yourself. So when you say, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, your self-esteem goes up, your ability to do your job goes up, your relationships improve, and you kind of smile inside. So the advice that I give is when you get up in the morning, first thing you say is, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. Before every meeting or event of importance, you say, well, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. And if you have a disappointment of some kind, just say, cancel it out by saying, I like myself. And the more you repeat this affirmation, the more it becomes true for you, and it affects your whole personality and the whole quality of your life.
And so the thoughts that occupy your mind are a massive component to success or failure. So how do you train your mind so that you have more positive, uplifting, and optimistic thoughts and less negative thoughts? Well, simple. First off, you have to ask yourself, what are the sources of negative or toxic thoughts that swirl around in my head? Maybe you're watching mainstream media, Fox News, CNN. Maybe you're on all these social media channels that are constantly feeding you fear, doubt, and uncertainty. Maybe you're surrounded by people who are constantly gossiping and rumoring and just stirring the pot, right? Whatever the sources of that negative thought is, if you don't kill it and replace it with positive incantations, with positive reinforcement, with reading books that build you, listening to podcasts and watching YouTube shows and reading books that are going to empower you, that are going to inspire you, that are going to move you to the 2.0 version of yourself. If those negative thoughts are not replaced with positive thoughts, then you are destined to failure. Or at least success is going to come at a very high price tag.
I don't want to be negative inside of my head anymore. I want to be more positive. I don't want to talk down to myself. I want to give myself more self-love. It is that easy to change. It just requires you to be more intentional of observing your thoughts as much as you possibly can. You must think consciously think, and consciously view your thoughts. Like, that's what you have to start, consciously thinking and constantly viewing your thoughts. Because most of the time it's all unconscious thoughts. And when you actually start to think about it, you say, you know what? I can probably change it. My unconsciousness, my unconscious thoughts, I'm going to try to make them conscious.
Your actions condition your mind as much as your recurring thoughts condition your mind. So be a person of good, positive thinking. Be a person of good, positive action. And suddenly one day you'll wake up and you're like, I just feel amazing. I feel extraordinary. I feel positive. And that's what it feels like to live the charged life.
People with a malevolent or negative worldview take a victim mentality, seeing life as a continuous succession of problems and a procession of unfairness and oppression. They can't move forward. They don't expect a lot, and they don't get much. When things go wrong, they shrug their shoulders and passively accept that this is just the way life is, and there isn't anything that they can do to make it better. On the other hand, people who practice positive thinking, a benevolent worldview, see the world around them as filled with opportunities and possibilities. They believe that everything happens as part of a great process designed to make them successful and happy. They approach their lives, their work, and their relationships with optimism, cheerfulness, and a general attitude of positive thinking and expectations.
There's a law called polarity. The law of polarity decrees everything as an opposite. You couldn't have an up without a down, a hot without a cold. You can't have a bad without a good. If you're looking at bad, that tells you there's got to be good. You cannot have bad without good. And if you want to feel good, start looking for what's good. And if you start looking for what's good, you're going to find it. You're going to find whatever you're looking for. And the idea to say, well, you really can't, there's so much bad going on, that attitude is not going to reward you at all. It's going to give you bad stuff. You've got to know that there's always something good. You've got to find it.
Opportunity has the habit of getting in the way of a person with a positive mental attitude. A person with a positive mental attitude attracts opportunity, favorable opportunities, just like a magnet attracts steel filings, and indefinitely. And in reverse, a negative mental attitude repels opportunity.
Positive thinking is one of the most powerful forces we all have at our disposal. It is a mindset to see the good in every situation. Positive thinking is not about ignoring reality or pretending that everything is perfect. In fact, positive thinking is you just making the choice to look at the best in every situation and using that perspective to create positive change. It is about finding solutions rather than dwelling on problems.
And when you consciously focus on positive thoughts, you activate certain neural pathways in the brain that correspond with those thoughts. And over time, those pathways become stronger and stronger and stronger. And as they become stronger, they become more efficient. And as they become more efficient, it actually makes it easier for you to access positive thoughts and emotions in the future. That's what's crazy. You could be negative as hell right now, but decide I'm no longer going to be negative. I'm going to find the good in everything. I'm going to be positive. And as you do it over and over and over, those neural pathways become stronger and stronger and stronger. And as they become stronger, they become more efficient, which makes it easier for you to access positive thoughts and emotions. Wow, that's pretty damn crazy, right? This is why positive thinking is often referred to as a brain workout. It's just like a real workout, like physical exercise strengthens your muscles. Positive thinking actually strengthens your brain.
Positive thinking is not about being delusional. Positive thinking is about learning how to take control of internal processes and understanding that that will shape your external environment. But it's about remaining in control of the internal landscape. It's about knowing that despite shifts in the external landscape, you're going to be okay.
Which do you think is more important? More positive thinking or less negative thinking? And I say, this is not a trick question. And I'll let them wrestle with that for a little bit. And for the group that we're talking to today, it's a very provocative question. Which is more important? Where do you get the most mileage? More positive thinking or less negative thinking? And the studies are unequivocal. It's less negative thinking. Positive thinking is important. And keep it up, keep it high. But if you want to get your real knowledge, just cut down on the negative thinking. Cut it down, cut it down, cut it down. That's the villain voice. That's the critic in your head. That's the demotivator. That's the discounter. That's the one that raises the doubts. And you can shut it up. It takes practice. It takes some discipline. But people say, well, I think I'm aware of my negative thinking, but they're not. About 70% of our negative thinking goes unperceived by us. It is so embedded in our day-to-day behavior.
We're not even aware of it.
We're not even aware of it.
So we got to learn how to cut out the negative thinking versus adding more positive thinking. Because you can keep adding positive thinking, but if you've got dirty water in the water, it's still going to be dirty. So you got to remove the dirty, the challenging thoughts to have more pure energy, cleaner energy that can make you more effective, more efficient.
Yeah.
People often who have negative recurring thoughts and feelings in their life, the reason those keep coming up all the time is because they at some point in their life or continually are giving those thoughts, the negative ones, more attention than necessarily any other thoughts. In other words, the relative weight that they give those thoughts is quite high. And they give a lot of importance to them. So those thoughts are very important to me right now. And they're durational, they last over a period of time. They keep thinking about those thoughts, thinking about those thoughts, thinking about those thoughts. And it's all that repetition that seals it in the back of their head. And now their head says, oh, this is an easy thing. I know this one, and it pulls it forward. So that simple repetition, because they made it important and they thought about it a lot, it keeps coming up for them over and over and over again. So there's a good negative thing about that and a positive thing. The negative is, if you keep obsessing about negative things, your mind will be automatically conditioned to bring it up more and more and more often without your control, just automatically. The positive aspect is we can use that same skill set and that same rule to apply positive thoughts into our own life. We can give positive thinking, positive questions, positive approaches to life a lot of importance in our life and a lot of focus, and focus on them and give a lot of duration to them over a period of time, and they get sealed in the brain as well. And now the brain says, well, that's easy, automatically thinks about it.
How do you stay positive? Well, first of all, I think we want to understand that staying positive is staying in a vibration that's going to cause us to feel good, to do better, and to keep growing. It's not an accident.
But you can't deny the fact that the positive thinking has a real physiological impact on what you do. He was talking about, they did a study with older people that were past retirement, and they asked them to use, what sort of words do you associate with getting older? And they split these people into two different groups, and the sort of words that people used perfectly mapped onto how long they were going to live. So the people that used the sort of words alone, frail, fragile, injury, death, they were the ones that lived the shortest. The people that said happiness, freedom, liberty, connection, maturity, those sorts of words were the ones that lived the longest. So your expectations can literally impact your longevity.
You know, when an individual learns how to stay positive, everything in their life improves. Why is that? Well, if you're not positive, you're negative. If you're not going in one direction, you're going the other. Everything in this universe has an opposite. Ignorance, knowledge. That's the way it works. Up, down, hot, cold, positive, negative.
If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. They're yours, right? If people truly understood how powerful their mind is, they wouldn't say or think something they didn't want to be true. And that's not to say you have a negative thought and ruins your life any more than eating a donut will ruin your life. But if you eat that donut 30 times a day, every single day, there will be a consequence, right? And it's hard to create a positive life with a negative mind. And so even if you find yourself saying, so what do? You have this awareness that you're saying, I don't have a great memory. Just add a little word like yet at the end. I don't have a great memory yet. It just opens up. It lands different.
There are so many people in this world who can see the hole in the donut, but they cannot see the donut around the hole. One with a positive mental attitude sees the hole in the donut, all right, but he also sees the donut around the hole. Nothing constructive and worthy of man's effort ever has been or ever will be achieved except that which comes from a positive mental attitude based upon a definite purpose and activated by a burning desire and intensified until the burning desire is elevated to the plane of applied faith.
It's a scientific fact that the hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease, long-term effects. Human beings, because of the size of the neocortex, we can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. We can think about our problems and turn on those chemicals. That means then our thoughts could make us sick. So if it's possible that our thoughts could make us sick, is it possible then our thoughts could make us well? The answer is absolutely yes.
Positive habits can live and thrive only in the mind which has been conditioned with a positive mental attitude. And your other self. Each human being is a plural, not a singular being. One of these beings is negative, the other is positive. And there is a battle from birth until death between these two as to which will dominate. Usually the power is about evenly divided between the positives and the negative. But often the negative takes over completely and makes of the individual a subject of irritation to himself and to all others around him. The development of a positive mental attitude is the first step at which one must take in order to give the positive self full and complete control over the negative self.
Why have a goal? Well, it's easy. No goal, no positive emotion. Because you experience positive emotion by noticing that you're moving towards a goal. And so if you don't have a goal, well, you can't have any positive emotion. So you better have a goal. And so you might say, well, what should the goal be? Well, we could start by saying, well, any goal is better than none.
A positive mental attitude is a state of mind which the individual must create and maintain by methods of his own choice, through the operations of his own willpower, based on motives of his own adoption.
So a positive thought triggers forward movement, potentially.
Yes. Yeah.
So positive thinking, which a lot of people will say, well, that's just positive thinking, it doesn't work. Some people say, well, be positive, think positive. Others say, well, it doesn't work. Well, with science, I'm hearing you say it gives you a little bit of a lift.
Absolutely. The key with positive thinking is that it has to be honest.